I will call the Finance Committee of March 1st. I will call that to order. We'll take a quick roll call. Amy?
Here.
Peter?
Here.
Paula?
Here.
Rick? Mike Fiore?
Here.
Bill?
Here.
Aaron?
Here.
Kevin?
Here.
Zach?
Present.
And Bonnie?
Here, and I do see Rick.
Yeah. Rick, can you hear us? We'll just let the minutes know Rick joined us.
Okay.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Good evening.
Hey, Rick. All right, with that said, I know there was some materials that might come to us. I know Amy was saying that she has the capability of appearing on screen, so I'm not sure, Mike, how you want to run with that, but go ahead. We have some presentations to go through tonight, so I'll get started.
In your packet, you have the budgets that we'll talk about tonight. And also, I put in your packets the estimated operating revenues and expenditures to date. And also the anticipated local receipts for next fiscal year, along with the actuals for prior years.
Hey, Mike, looking at that, if I looked at it right, what's driving excise tax to be higher than our budgeted so far by about 80,000 for meals?
Just looking at, what we've pulled in so far, and what we pulled in the previous years. And it looks like we'll be a little bit higher.
Okay, all right. I was surprised with that. And then when do you think we'll get the water sewer numbers?
I know that water and sewer is on tonight. So hopefully after they present their budget tonight and do any fine tuning that they have to have, by next week, hopefully we'll have that in the budget so we can see what the indirects are.
Okay, thank you.
And we did get Bristol County Agricultural and Southeastern Regional. So those are their proposed budgets in the on that sheet. And they'll be at your meeting on the 22nd.
Okay. Okay, does anyone on the committee have any questions for Mike at this point? I don't know how last week went. Was there any follow-ups?
It went unbelievable. It was so smooth.
Was
How
legendary.
many?
15 minutes in and out.
We're done, actually. We didn't even need this meeting.
We did the whole
All
budget.
right, Bonnie, was that a motion?
Second, I'm gonna second it too, see?
All right, Mike, I know it looks like if you're gonna go in order, it looks like it's Chief Clark up first.
Oh,
It
Mr.
is.
Chairman,
Aaron?
I'm sorry, regarding questions for Mike and follow-ups from last week, the only thing I have outstanding was we're still looking for a sort of true sum valuation of how we made out with SEMREC, considered, all things considered with, budgets, items that we had to move to different budgets and, that whole conversation was one that Mike's going to get back to us.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Mike.
I have that. I just figured I'd do it next week when you just have the Charter Commission on.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Thanks, Aaron.
Mr. Chairman,
Zach, go ahead.
before we start on this, Mike, can you also get us some kind of, I'm still kind of stunned by the medical insurance bill, $12 million to cover everybody in town. Can you get us a breakdown of those costs so we have an understanding how we come up with 12 million and how many total employees we have in the town that are covered on this, school and town, if that's possible?
Yep, that's no problem.
Thank you.
All right, is that it? Is that it for the Finance Committee questions? All right, Chief Clark,
Good evening.
how are you today? How's everyone doing?
We're doing okay. Thank you. So the total, I guess I'll go through a few things, kind of a little odd with this, but so there's 8
Mr.
employees
Chairman, can I just interrupt?
this year.
Go ahead, Mike.
Brian, do you want me to share my screen, or do you have something that you want to share?
I can, I mean, if you want to help, if you want me to share it, I can share my screen. That would be fine. A little easier to work with.
Okay, I'll take mine off.
Okay, so this is my budget document for this fiscal year with the backup documentation. A couple things I just want to show you real quick. I won't go line by line, but I'll just give you an overview. So this year's budget is really a very small, I wouldn't even call it a level service increase. I'll call it what we have now to maintain increase, and it's only about $20,000. It does include some increase, a 2% increase for next year's contracts. They all expired last July 1st or June 30th. There's a couple of reasons why the increase is actually so modest. It really has to do with salary augmentation. There are some officers who have used salary augmentation who are getting off of it, and it actually represents a very large decrease to the budget. Salary augmentation is a contractual agreement where they get a higher salary in lieu of sick buyback. So we've kind of talked about this over the years. Probably about 5 or 6 years ago, there was actually a dramatic increase in the budget because of it, because of the number of people, but we're seeing the decrease, and we'll probably maintain this type of decrease for years to come, since the majority of people eligible have gone through it already. There is an amount that we have 2 school resource officers. The schools pay up to 75% for one, and that totals $70,477.78 for next year. Most of the increases are contractual. We have 8 employees that receive step increases, 4 employees that receive longevity increases, 7 employees that receive vacation increases. And if you remember at the October town meeting, we approved military time, an additional 23 days for one of the officers that we have. So the overtime is basically the same exact overtime that I asked for last year. It was cut last year, and we actually haven't received the amount, that amount. I requested $444,500, and we received $419,500. So I think we're in pretty good shape because of COVID. There's some things that really just haven't happened. I'll give you a couple examples. The training classes have really been canceled. They're starting to kick up again now that we're coming out of now that things are opening up, and we're coming into phase 3, step 2, and then phase 4, March 22nd. There'll be more training classes that we'll have to get officers through. We're in-service training right now, and in-service training is basically online, kind of like we're doing here through Zoom, and it's actually very cost effective, and it's actually a lot cheaper, and we're actually buzzing through it relatively quickly at a lower cost. This next page 5 is basically just all contractual. I did have an increase in the shift pay, basically for sergeants out. We increased, there's a OIC pay that the highest patrolman will receive. Obviously, as you know, we're down a sergeant right now, and we expect to be down a sergeant until at least the fall. The incentive to pay is contractual, and really no other increases there. The expenses are really level funded. If you see, let me pop up to the first page. If you actually see, there's actually a slight decrease in expenses this year, 3550. Really because we transferred a couple expenses to data processing that were more of computer related. So. See if I can share something else. And can you see this graph?
Not yet, Chief.
So this is a graph of basically what we use overtime for. Can you see this now?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
So really our overtime is mostly for backfill. You can see we basically backfill about 20% vacation time, 22% holiday time, 17% training time. If somebody's held over, I use the example, if there's a late call at 10:04 and somebody's held over for a period of time, half hour, if there's an arrest or something like that, that's where this comes out of. Court, as I think I mentioned, court has really been canceled recently. They're starting up again as things open up. But you know, since the pandemic, there really hasn't been much of court. Investigations is 8%, and then the personal and sick time is, you know, about 10%. So that's kind of where we are for backfill and overtime. I know that's always a big question. You know, why we need it. So.
Right. Just curious, how are you guys making out with any challenges or concerns so far in either FY21 or anticipated challenges, concerns in FY22?
I don't have any specific challenges or concerns for this fiscal year. Next fiscal year, you know, we're getting into police reform. We're getting into a lot of mandated training. We're getting into policy changes and public records requests. I think, you know, one thing I briefly talked to the town manager about is that I think we should increase the records clerk or the records administrator to a, she's basically at a 12 to 15 hour position now. I think that should be at least a 24-hour position next year. And there's a couple reasons. You know, she used to get about 8 to 12 requests for records, whether it's crash data, Division of Children and Families looking for reports, or just general reports. She'd get about 8 a week, 8 to 12 a week, and she's been getting about 8 to 12 a day. So there's things that we're going to need to do for police reform that also I think it would be beneficial if we increase that position. I also think one of the reasons you're seeing basically our overtime is, you know, kind of has leveled off is because we've hired more officers in the last 5 years, basically 3 officers in particular. And, you know, our overtime has decreased because of it. We're not backfilling the shifts as much. We're still backfilling them, but not as much. If we didn't have those officers, I mean, our overtime, I think I've said in the past, would be, you know, quite a bit more than this, probably a couple $100,000 more than this. So, and we're still not, you know, we're still not maintaining 4 on the road all the time. I think that's an area that we have to really, you know, especially on the day shift and the 4 to 12 shift, we should be looking to do. Because of the pandemic, we really haven't done it. But as the warmer weather comes out around in April, and as we get out of this pandemic and people start getting out and the bars start opening, I think we're going to need that additional personnel.
Okay. So Chief, is that records clerk, is that in the the FY '22 budget, or
Not the increase, no.
it's not, okay. Okay,
There are no there are no new positions or no new hours in this budget. That's why I said, from the start that it's really, I wouldn't even call it a level services budget because it's really not representative of what we're going to need going forward. It's not even,
Okay.
I mean, if you do the math, it's not even 1% of an increase.
right. So that type of position for the records clerk, you're talking year 23, FY '23 potentially.
Well, I think we should do it in FY '22.
Okay, all
July
right,
1st. And it's it would be basically a $10,000 increase, which, if you added a 2% increase to last year's, you're talking at an increase of $76,000. So there's, I think there's room that we can still move within there.
okay. And what happens now if the records clerk isn't available or can't get to that? Is it just get put on a list that she can get to it, or they can get to it when needed, or does somebody fill in for that?
Yeah, my assistant will fill in if needed. If she's away on vacation, because there is a time period that we need to get records out. It's a 10-day time period by the public records laws that we don't have any choice in. So.
Okay. And I'm just curious, how many grants do you guys get during a year, and kind of just a high level? What kind of grants are they? Are they for personnel, salaries, equipment, or somewhere in between?
And so the select board asked this question last week, and there isn't any, really since 1994, the crime bill under Bill Clinton, there hasn't been any new grants to increase personnel that have come to a department like our size. We did just get a grant this fall for $40,000, which included traffic equipment and a $5,000 amount to do some follow-ups for like opioid and mental health addiction. And then there was about $34,000 for traffic equipment, which means a new speed monitor. Some of those signs like you see over at the LG North signs, those speed signs, we put those in the capital budget a year or so ago, and we only got 2 out of 6. So this will actually be very helpful to put them around other places in town. 2 years ago, we got an Attorney General's grant that we were able to run a program called Project Alert in the 6th grade. It's something similar to what DARE was, but quite a bit different, but it's taught in the 6th grade in particular. And that was a 2-year grant. And then we'll get sporadic traffic enforcement grants, pedestrian safety, like you'll see the officers out on Route 123, in particular in front of Wheaton College, when there's a decoy officer, and then other officers who stop cars who go through the pedestrian crossing when there's a pedestrian there. But that's kind of the brunt of the grants that we really get.
Okay. And how is there any uptick with calls to Wheaton at this point? Have you noticed anything?
No.
Okay. So that won't change over with their security staff getting.
Yeah, so we haven't received any real calls for service over there. But I don't think, right now that there has been a lot of kids over there either. So I know the parking lot has relatively been empty. I don't really know how many students they have on campus at this point, but they seem to be working fine with the staff that they have, the new security.
All right, good. Does anyone have any questions for Chief Clark at this point from the Finance Committee?
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Chief, overtime for me is a sore spot, not only with the police department, with the fire department as well. You have vacations, you have holidays, you have comp and miscellaneous, and people are gonna call out sick. Why wouldn't we take, I don't know, 200,000 of that budget, 300,000 of that budget, and hire 2 or 3 more officers and 2 or 3 more specials, and just put an extra guy on per shift, and if somebody calls in sick or is on vacation, they're on vacation, you don't fill them. And when they're all there, you got an extra body on the street.
Well, that's a great point. And we actually, working with the town manager, we've actually done that. But we're not at the point where we can there's always gonna be overtime, right? I mean, there just is.
I agree, it's just a matter of managing it,
Right.
and I'm saying $400,000, can we put 200,000 and have a few more uniforms in town?
I think, I mean, certainly we could, yes. It takes time. And that's why I said earlier, like the 3 officers that we hired, that were new, we're starting to see the benefits of their overtime. I mean, our overtime's not as high as the fire department. I'm sure you can see that.
I agree, and I think you should continue to do it,
But I think
hire a few more bodies.
I agree. I think that's something that we should continue to work with. We don't see the benefit. I mean, if we were to hire somebody today, like we're going to backfill a position, obviously the death of Sergeant DeFossis, we're going to backfill that. So we're down 1 position right now, but it's going to take about 9 months to get that person up and running. By the time they get through the academy, get through the FTO program, after the initial backgrounds and everything, the pre-employment things, it's going to take 9 months. So we wouldn't even see hiring a person. We won't see the decrease in overtime per se until probably, close to next fiscal year.
I get that, but I would like, not only, I'll pick on the fire department as well. I'd like to see a plan say, okay, we need this for this year to get us by, but next year we're gonna put on 4 more uniforms, 2 more specials, and we're gonna, I'm gonna come in with 200,000 next year, and we're gonna have a few more uniforms in town with the same budget.
I think,
My opinion.
no, I think that, I think it's a great idea. I think one of the things that you have to realize too is that we have in the packets I gave you, I did a history of vacancies. You don't always know when a vacancy is going to happen. Obviously, Sergeant DeFossis was not a planned vacancy. Sometimes people who, sometimes retirements aren't necessarily planned. They come quicker, or they're longer than anticipated. And right now, we don't backfill every single shift. We have, I'll give you an example, the 4 to 12 shift tonight, they have 6 officers on it. If 2 people call out vacation and sick, we don't fill those. But if a third person calls out, we do fill it. And our minimum manning is 3 officers on the roof, 1 on the desk, the same minimum manning we've had for 30 years.
I agree. I mean, it's a moving target, but I'm saying half that pie on this pie chart, about the vacations, the holidays, the comp. I would like to see more bodies, and I'll leave it at that.
I don't disagree with you. I think it's something that we continue to aim to do. It does get tough when you do, I'm glad you kind of understand this, because it's tough sometimes explaining how to go about this.
Thanks, Chief. Anyone else on the Finance Committee with questions for Chief Clark? Okay, hearing none. Chief, thank you so much. Be safe.
Okay, thank you. Have a good night.
You as well.
Next, we have Council on Aging. And at the Council on Aging, we have the director and 2 staff people, 1 an outreach counselor and 1 a clerk. And part of their budget is also funded from the formula grant from the state. And I think Beth is on tonight. If you have some questions for Beth, or if Beth wants to talk some more about her budget. They've obviously been busy this year, nonstop. First dealing with COVID and COVID's concerns and concerns for food insecurity, and now trying to help seniors get a slot to get vaccinated. So the outreach counselor, Beth, and the clerk have been really, really busy all year.
And Beth, do you just want to go through your budget at all, or do you have any discussions? A couple of things that I just like, if you could, is some of your, did a high level, but some of the challenges, concerns you have either in FY21 this year, or what you anticipate for FY22.
I think one of the concerns I have is I know next year our formula grant is going to decrease. Right now, I believe we're getting $12 a senior, and I believe that's going to go down to $9. I think it may reflect the new census data, so we may break out even, but that's one thing that we're not 100% sure about. So as you can see from my budget is salaries, and basically heat and lights. So all of my programming comes from grants and the formula grant itself. So that's one thing I'm a little concerned about. Also, the formula grant pays for half of the outreach workers. So right now, the town of Norton is only paying for 10 hours out of the 18-hour position. So I'm hoping, praying that the formula grant can cover what it has in the past.
And when we find out, so when do we find out if that grant may get changed, when it would drop to the $9? Is that something that we'll be aware of shortly?
There's word out, there's some rumors out now. Nothing has been definitive as of yet. I don't know when they will know that. I know that we start the process in the summertime. So we'll know by the beginning of the fiscal year.
Okay. And just for, one thing I remember is I see incentive pay in the budget. Can you just give me a refresher on what that is?
So the incentive pay is something new that was incorporated into my contract, and I would like it to be included in Kathy Barnes' contract as well. As I'm required to become SHINE certified. SHINE is Medicare counseling, and that's something that I have to go through a huge training for, take an exam for, and attend monthly meetings for, as well as my outreach worker does as well. So that's what that is for.
Thank you.
Welcome. If there's anything else. I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward.
How is, I know the building is closed now, right? How is everybody making out? They're finding you for the services they
Yeah,
need?
the building is actually open, and it has been open since April of last year. I mean, I think we closed for 2 weeks, and then we opened again for one-on-one appointments once the safety procedures were in place. A lot of the people that I work with need that one-on-one, whether it's because they have hearing issues or whatever issues they need to meet face-to-face. So we have been open and running full steam ahead. We are closed for activities, so we're doing a lot of that virtually. So all our formula grant money for fitness programs and things like that, they've been done via Zoom. Our crafts, some of the more fun stuff that we do has also been done online. We have a painting class where we have a volunteer who does painting lessons, and it's done over Facebook Live. So we're trying to be creative. We are doing a drive-through St. Patrick's Day party coming up. That should be interesting. We have an entertainer who's agreed to sing outside, and people will drive through, sit for a little while, have a cup of coffee, and then grab a meal to go. It's really amazing how our job has changed since COVID. So we've really gone into crisis mode, as Mike mentioned. We are running a food program 4 days a week now. We're feeding between 40 and 50 people a day, lunches. And a lot of that is due to their fears about going to the market. So we have been doing some one-on-one training, teaching people how to shop online, which has been interesting. But yeah, I mean, we do it all. When the pandemic first hit, we were dealing with a lot of younger families, people who needed to sign up for, unemployment and pandemic unemployment, and they didn't have the computers or the skills to do that. So we were doing that. We are, we were signing people up for food stamps. I mean, a lot of people's lives changed with this pandemic, and we were really right in the forefront. We took, we ran with it, and we were helping a lot of people sort of navigate.
No, it's nice. And how are people finding you? When you were saying about younger families, were they just reaching out? Did they have seniors in town, or did they hear about your services?
They know about my services. I mean, we have the Department of Human Services as well as the Senior Center. So I'm actually the director of both, 2 jobs. So I think they know. I'm on social media a lot. I sort of, if we have something going on, I publish it, like, it's fuel assistance time, or hey, if you're struggling and you need help. And I've been sharing those on all the social media platforms, not only the senior center's page, but also Norton Neighbors, the moms groups, and anything I can get the word out.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that. Does anyone else on the finance committee have any other questions for Beth at this time?
Mr. Chair?
Zach?
Beth, thank you for all you do with the seniors. You provide a tremendous service, and I know it's sometimes unappreciated, but there's a lot of people that do appreciate you. My question is, you're running a pretty thin budget, basically $2,200 a week to run that department. Hopefully we will have you in a new building in a couple of years. How are you going to run that department on $2,200 a week in that new facility would be my question.
I haven't really put a lot of thought of that because I'm struggling to just get through the day these days, but we'll make it work. So some of the money that I bring in is from my programs. So for example, people, if they want to do Zumba, they pay $2 a class. I charge the grant for the Zumba class and use the $2 for the painting class. So it's kind of like you move these pieces around and you make it happen.
How many volunteers do you have that work with you?
Excuse me?
Do you have volunteers that work with you there?
I did. So we had over 50, I think it was between 35 volunteers, pretty steady. We're not using them now due to COVID, but and those were people who would man the front desk, who would come in and do programs.
And one last thing, Beth, as the seniors are now getting vaccinated slowly but surely, is there a plan to bring them back once they're vaccinated? If you have a group that's been vaccinated, they can go back to in-person activities?
I'm nervous because it's hard to let one in and not the other. So we're thinking about that. We're starting to talk about that, but we're also starting to talk about having programs outside. So I know we're planning a lot of stuff now for May and June that we can have at Everett Leonard Park. But yeah, I mean, we would love to have them back. Right now, we're in the middle of our tax program. So Thursdays are booked up doing people's taxes. So that's kind of nutty. Right now, we don't have the space to bring people back safely, in my opinion, for our fitness programs. It's tough because the facility is so small. I mean, when I would have a St. Patrick's Day party, I would, smoosh 50 to 60 people in that building. There's no way I could do that now with the virus. So, I don't know how to answer your question. Yes, I'm thinking about it all the time, and I'm trying to think of creative ways to get around them coming back in the building as well.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Rick?
Hi, Beth, thanks for all you do. Just going back, you mentioned about serving 40 or 50 people a day.
Mm-hmm.
How is that in coordination with the school, the town program, meeting through the schools, or how does that work?
This is a program through Bristol Elder Services, so it is just for residents 60 and up. The school program, once we were doing it 2 days a week. Once the school stopped doing it for non-students, we increased it to 4 days a week. And it's nuts, to be honest with you. It takes my admin. I mean, she's running in and out of the building from 11 to 2 all, the whole time, bringing people their lunches. But it's separate than the school program. We have a couple of food programs. Not only do we do this drive-through thing 4 days a week, but we also run a program called the Supplemental food program, where we deliver food boxes to people on a monthly basis.
Sure.
I've also worked with United Way to get soup delivered. So we had a big delivery last week. We're having another huge soup delivery this week, where people can come by and pick it up. So.
Okay, I guess a follow-up question, Mr. Chairman, follow-up question to Mike.
Yes, go ahead, Rick.
could this council on maybe could they get together with that? Why aren't they together?
The school was getting their money and stuff from a different fund. This is through Bristol Elder Services,
But
where we don't pay anything for the food.
okay, I thought the program, the town program, was federally funded, and I don't understand why the Council on Aging can't participate in that.
Right now, the funding is for students, school-age students, I believe, under the school program, and Beth is dealing with the senior population, so it's a separate. She's receiving donations of food, not spending any money on it.
But wasn't during the summer and at the height of the program, wasn't that a town-wide program that everyone participated in?
It was.
It was at the time, yep.
Okay, okay. All right. Thank you.
Does anyone else on the finance committee have questions for Beth? No, hearing none. Beth, thank you so much, and we appreciate all the services you do for the seniors and all the town residents. Very much appreciated. Be safe.
Thanks.
Next we have the Veterans Office. Let me share Estelle's budget. So in Estelle's budget, it's Estelle and a part-time clerk. That position has been vacant ever since COVID started, but we've been fortunate now to find someone to fill that position, and we'll be starting next week, Estelle. Tomorrow, okay.
Yes.
So Estelle's budget is contractual salaries and small expense budget, and then obviously the largest portion of Estelle's budget is the veteran benefits. And the veterans benefits, $230,000. That's her estimate of what she's gonna need.
Estelle, how do we reach out to the veterans? How do we get messages to them if they need the services, or are they so familiar with everything they know where to find you?
A little bit of that for sure. Through the veterans organizations in town, we have both the VFW, American Legion, my name and messages get put out through their newsletter. During COVID, Council on Aging, Human Services gave me a page in their publication as well. So that reached the vast majority of seniors. I also use the support and help of others to use social media when necessary, or Norton Media.
Okay, do we get anything from the state that lists out all of our veterans that we can cross-check to make sure we're servicing all the veterans in town?
I have access to the census that puts, I haven't seen the new obviously, but typically I know that we're just under 1,000, no, 10,000. Sorry, I said that. No, I was right, 1,000, where's my mind? Sorry about that. What I do receive from them, the state, is when veterans return home or are discharged from the military or return from a deployment. And I get that fairly consistently, and then reach out to them with a welcome letter or a phone call.
Okay. And then the same question, just what are some of the challenges, concerns you're having, not only with this year's budget, FY21, but potentially things that you see for FY22?
thought I would have seen a little bit more on the Chapter 115 cases increase, but in fact, they went down a little. And that was because of unemployment or the pandemic, because people were actually making more money collecting, and they were not as reliant on Chapter 115, locally anyways. In Norton, I know some towns saw a big increase in Chapter 115 cases, but the majority of folks would check in with me. I'd tell them what they'd be entitled to, and they said, I'll get back to you. Or I'm waiting to hear back to see what I'm getting from unemployment. I actually had a few seniors who are on fixed incomes. They became eligible for that pandemic relief, and they stopped services with me because they were making more money. When they had the 600 and now the 300 extra a week.
Right.
As far as projecting, I cannot guess where it's going. I thought for sure that it was going to be, my conversation with you tonight would be about Chapter 115 and the need to increase that budget. Last year, I spent $205,772 of the $230,000. And as you know, the town was reimbursed 75%. So the cost to the town last year was $51,443.
Right, so could you, I know we have some new members on the finance committee, so could you explain a little bit, just very high level, that 75% reimbursement, what benefits are covered? So everything on that veterans benefits line that has the budget of $230,000, there is a state reimbursement that we do receive on the amounts expended. So if you don't mind, just high level for our new members.
Sure. So the state of Massachusetts has a program, Mass General Law, Chapter 115, that provides it's a state benefit provided to veterans and their widows. When administered, the state will reimburse, as long as the paperwork and documentation are there to support, they will reimburse back to the town 75%.
Okay,
So
thank you.
it's all about a paper trail.
And then my last question is just, how many grants are actually used in this budget or the services that we provide?
I do not have any grants.
Okay. Does anyone else on the finance committee have any questions for Estelle at this time? Okay, hearing none. Estelle, thank you so very much. Everything you do for our veterans in town and elsewhere, and appreciate all the services, and be safe.
You too.
I just wanted to echo that, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to echo that. Both Estelle and Beth, I know often on weekends, they're dealing with clients that are in desperate situations, and they never refuse to get back to a person and help them out. We're lucky to have them.
I'm just going to echo too. I'm glad that Beth has the setup that she does, because we work hand in hand. And I rely on many occasions for her outreach workers just to get the job done. We help one another, being eyes and ears. She identifies a veteran and vice versa, but her food services are something that I piggyback on because I'm aware of the free soup that she gets and the free meat boxes and even the drive-through lunch. So it is, we work well together to serve everyone in the community, for sure.
Excellent.
Mr. Chairman, the other budget that comes under Estelle is the Memorial and Veterans. And once again, the request is for $2,000. And this is for any expenses for parades and also flags for the cemeteries.
Actually, it's more town flags, Mike. The cemetery flags are covered under the veteran benefit, that 230,000. This one here handles mostly the flags for all the flag poles in town, the flag holders that are in each cemetery and presented to each time a veteran passes away.
I know a couple of years ago, weren't we having problems on the grave sites with was it the placards that were on the grave site people were taking? Was this being used?
It's the flag holders.
It's the flag holders.
Themselves, right. In my almost 8 years, I've had one incident where some were taken out of the center cemetery off of Pine Street. And I had probably just about the time we had replaced them, I had a scrap place contact me to return them. It was probably 4 years ago now that the Brave Act established a penalty and a fine to not only the person caught stealing, but also to the scrap or, the business that took it in. So that's helped. And I'll add to that Mr. Watson engraved the back of every one of those markers, and his son William has now taken that on, but by putting the name and the town, so they're easily identified and returned to us.
Good, thank you. Does anyone else on the Finance Committee have any questions regarding the Memorial and Vets budget? Okay, hearing none. Estelle, again, thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
Next, we have conservation. Let me get that budget up for you. So in the conservation department, there's 2 full-time staff people. And then on the expense side, the largest cost is under maintenance of conservation areas, that's increased slightly this year, about $2,000, a little over $2,000, and that's for maintenance at Camp Edith Reed. And under professional services, that is for engineers to inspect the dam every year, the dams, and file reports with the state. And I think Jennifer is on.
Yes.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi.
Jennifer, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Excellent, thank you very much. I know if you want to add any context to what Mike was saying already, and then just again, what kind of challenges, concerns you're having with FY21, if any, but also potentially FY22?
The increase to maintenance of conservation is to make sure we had enough money for propane. We just turned on the heat for winter at the lodge. And we had actually used more propane than what the Girl Scouts had said they were using. And so I added a little extra to this next fiscal year's budget just to make sure we didn't run out.
And how's that going over there, Jennifer? How's everything? I know you were doing a lot of work on the buildings and the grant that you applied for and got. How was all that going?
Yeah, really, it's going really well. We're getting really close to being able to open it. The heating system had been put in before. We just had the ceiling installed. The ceiling was painted. Just over the weekend, we put all the lighting in. The kitchen is nearly finished. The rest of the painting is nearly finished. I just have the floors to finish, and then I need the heating company to go back and make some repairs on the heating system. But it's looking fantastic, and I'm really excited for when we can do an open house and have everyone come visit it and look at it. We have some interest in people renting it. We're also working with Permit Eyes, our online permitting system, so that people can make the reservations online. So it should be really easy for people to do.
Terrific.
Yeah,
And
it's
what,
coming out great. It's really exciting.
nice. A lot of work went into that, and we really appreciate it. And hopefully the town can get out there and enjoy all the fruits of your labor.
There are so many people who walk there every day. It's a constant stream of people using the property. It's fantastic.
It's nice. And conservatively, what do you think if we getting up running full, what do you think the potential revenues could be for a year?
You know, I'm not sure. We put 60,000 for revolving fund amount, just to throw a number out there. You know, I'm not really sure when it's being rented for camping. I mean, it could be like $10 a person per night, so it's not a lot of money there. But if someone rents it for a meeting space, or like a company retreat kind of meeting for a day, that would bring in a little bit more money. There's another program that I'm working on. Hopefully it'll be a weekly one-night camp out project for someone. So that should bring in a little bit of money too.
Okay. Well, thank you.
And as far as grants, we got the cable grant and the cultural council grants. In the fall, were each $2,000. We got $10,000 from Taunton River Stewardship Council. I just applied last week for a grant for a forestry program at Edith Reed Town Forest and Lincoln Woods conservation property. So that'd be about 15 to 20,000. In May, I'll be helping the water department with a grant for drinking water source protection. And in June or July, I'm hoping to write a grant to renovate the bathrooms at the lodge, so people who just want to camp can use the bathrooms out, so they don't have to rent the lodge at the same time. But that would be another program where we would include the plumbing, carpentry, electrical students from Southeast region to actually do the work.
Very nice. Sounds like there's a great plan in place.
Yeah, hopefully everything lines up correctly and yeah.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone on the Finance Committee have any questions for Jennifer regarding her budget?
Mr. Chairman,
Zach?
I guess this question would probably be for Mike, but on the under personnel services between 2019 and 2022, you have a 44.92% increase in 3 years. 44.92%. Do we add more people there, or how do we get that kind of increase?
We did. The clerk's position was a part-time position, and last year, halfway through the year, it was put to a full-time.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the Finance Committee? Okay, hearing none. Jennifer, thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
You as well. Be safe.
Thank you, you too.
Next, we have accounting. Let me get that budget up for you. In the accounting department, there's 3 employees, 2 full-time, 1 part-time. And also in their budget is the annual audit expense. So $26,000 for the audit next year. And that audit is for all the town, schools and town. And I know James is on.
James, how are you?
Doing good. How are you?
Excellent, thank you. So I know if you want to add any context to what Mike was saying, or again, challenge concerns with FY 21-22.
I don't foresee any challenges in my, we're very lucky to have, the three of us have over 20 years of experience. So that makes the job a lot easier. My concern going to lose an employee in the office, we're probably gonna have to work possibly our position in order to keep up with number of work. I hear an echo, kind of.
Yeah, James, I'm sorry. It looks like you're cutting in and out. I don't know if anyone else is getting that same issue. I'm not sure if it's your internet service or not, but you're cutting in and out. Sorry.
Yes, I keep hearing an echo.
Yeah, it's, if everyone that, Mr. Chairman, if everyone that isn't talking could mute, I think that might help the echo.
Okay, can you hear me better now? Hello?
Yes, you sound better.
All right,
Yes,
good.
much better.
So basically, I was saying that currently the three staff people in my office, we all have over 20 years of experience, and it makes the job go smoother and easier because we already know what we're doing. But if we were to lose one of us, it would cause a big problem going forward. We will probably have to increase the hours of the part-time position to full-time in order to properly train the person, and the job keeps growing, the town keeps growing, we get more paperwork, more grants are coming through with the COVID stuff. There's more requirements, and it's just the three of us. So that's my only concern going forward. But for right now, for 21 and even for fiscal year 22, I feel confident that with what we have, we can manage. My expense budget, I decreased it a little bit, but not much. I really don't have much of a budget. If you look at it, it's mostly for seminars and conferences. I don't know if we're gonna have any conferences next year, if COVID will allow us to get back to traveling. But I need to have the budget in order to go in case they are available. If I don't go, I'll turn it back like I do every year, and it'll become part of free cash. If you guys have any questions, let me know.
Hey, James, one question for you. How is remote processing going for your department? Are you getting everything done in a remote setting?
We're working in the office. We're not working remotely. There are a few people within town hall that may work a day or two remotely, but as of, I want to say at least for the last 2 months, we've all been working at the office. I was out sick for about a month and a half, and I was working home. But everything has been okay so far. The main departments, which is the treasurer collector and my department, we've always had somebody in the office processing and receiving the paperwork. The one picking out better, the warrants are signed electronically by the select board. So that has made, they don't have to come in and sign.
Okay. And my last question, just how is the audit going? Is it almost wrapped up for?
The audit is finished, it's done. We do have the report that out yet. I'm waiting to confirm a date with the select board to have the auditors make an official presentation, probably within the next couple of weeks. But I can send you a PDF file of the report if you want ahead of time.
Yeah, that'd be great. Any findings that you can discuss or anything at all?
Nothing serious. The management report is very similar to last year. Just touching up on, well, now they're touching up on making sure that, you know, because of COVID, there's a couple of comments there related to COVID. They want to make sure that we're on top of our game so that we don't miss anything. But there is really no deficiencies in the audit at all.
Okay. All right, thank you. Does anyone else on the finance committee have any questions for? No, hearing none. James, thank you very much. Thank you for everything you're doing and be safe.
Thank you, you too.
Thanks.
Next, we have water and sewer. Let me open that up. And I think Frank is on. The first budget is the water enterprise budget. And obviously you're gonna see some changes in here because this will be the first full year of operation of the water treatment plant. And you'll see increase in overtime because the water department has now become a 24/7 department with the treatment plant. And expenses obviously increased also for the maintenance of the plant. Frank?
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Good evening, everybody. Yeah, Mike here ahead. We've hit the 1 year mark now for the treatment facility. We have encumbered some significant expenses with wages, salaries, and definitely overtime at the facility based on DEP requirements for being fully staffed while operational. We had anticipated having wells 5 and 6 a little bit further along than they are now as far as with the replacement process. Thankfully, they are still moving forward, and we could possibly see well 5 be online as quickly as 8 months from now. There's some delays with equipment. There's the screen that goes in the ground at the base of the well, which unfortunately is actually coming from Minnesota. So every time we look every day, it just says weather for the reasoning for why the shipping has been delayed. And some of the other parts actually were scheduled to come from Texas. So obviously we had delays down there, also weather related. But the driller is out there now moving to continue drilling well 6 to its full depth. Hopefully we'll have everything on hand and there won't be any delays. But with new well sources, there are always extra challenges to meet with DEP and EPA before they approve. So in the meantime, we do have to run fully staffed, and you will see some significant increases, not just on the line items for overtime and wages, but everything kind of snowballs with this. The electrical costs are through the roof, as well as propane and natural gas would be some of the biggest changes you'll see on these line items.
So were these, and I just don't remember, were these anticipated increases in the projections when we got the new plants up and running? You know?
They were anticipated. They were based on an estimate of what the plant would possibly run at until we had our 1 year full run time in. We'll have to obviously increase the numbers that were originally estimated. They were a little bit low.
Okay. And how is that plant actually processing now? Are we still getting issues with the water, or is that somewhat going away?
The water quality that we have coming from that phenomenal. Really wish myself for 21 years. I wish we could have done it 21 years ago, or even before that. It's night and day. The water that's coming out of that building. We do still have 2 other wells that are not plumbed to that facility, which we use on an occasional basis. Well 1, which is the one that everybody sees in the manganese report that we have to put out quarterly, and well 3, those are the 2 that are not connected to the facility. We will look in the future to decrease our usage at those 2 sources once wells 5 and 6 are replaced, and we have the ability to put, I'd say 99% of the water to the treatment facility.
Thank you. Does any of the FinCom members have any questions on the water enterprise budget for Frank?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Oh,
Is that Amy first, and then was it Zach? Or
ladies first.
Well, thank you. I'm just looking at all of the different line items here under expenses, and it looks like some of them we are budgeting the same number or slightly more as the current fiscal year, but the expenditures are very small year to date against the budgeted amount. For example, we're budgeting $255,000 for chemicals, when through the first half of our current fiscal year, we've spent $42,000. I'm just wondering if we are gonna have a massive outlay of chemical expenses in the next 6 months, or if there's something else that I need to know.
No, very good question. You're right. Right now, with wells 4, 5, and 6, which are feeding the treatment facility, we're only operating at about 50% capacity based on the limited production we can get from those 3 wells. Looking forward, those 2 other wells, which would be wells 5 and 6, should be replaced by the time this budget goes in place. So we will see increased costs for additional chemicals at that facility based on what the original design was at full capacity. The 255, this is just a preliminary number budget. 255 is what we carried, I believe it was in FY21. So it was carried over just to make sure we had the coverage there. These numbers will be tightened up slightly, but based on what we're doing now, and we don't know what the potential outcome will be for wells 5 and 6 for gallons per minute. It's an estimate.
Okay, I think that's fair. I just can't see this across multiple line items, $100,000 for in-house water main projects when we've expended $980 so far, and $50,000 for professional services when we've expended $3,500 year to date. I just want to make sure that if we're holding other department heads to keeping budgeted numbers in a realistic realm, that we're doing the same, even though this is a separate enterprise.
No, agreed. Again, this is just our preliminary budget. We carried quite a few numbers over just to get this over to you guys. And we have quite a few items on here that we will be tuning up a little bit. The in-house projects there, we did have plans. Unfortunately, they were put on hold due to COVID. We have quite a few water mains in town where hydrant built halfway down the street, which was something that was allowed many years ago. So unfortunately, the homes after that hydrant have no way of being flushed. So you can't improve the water quality for those residents there. So we do have projects that we had lined up to go, and then obviously COVID hit, and those were put on hold. We did go ahead and replace quite a few fire hydrants this time around, as they were quick projects. We can have people socially distant, for the most part, and so the line item there, we would probably most likely to keep that in there because we do anticipate obviously coming out of COVID and coming back strong.
And with that saying, when do you think we would see that adjusted budget?
I would say you can get that probably by your next meeting. Have you guys got 2 weeks till your next meeting? Is that a guess?
We meet weekly, so we have one next week as well, but 2 weeks is fine. That's great.
Very good.
I know, Zach, you had a question, I believe?
Yeah, I have a couple. On the salaries, you have separate crews for sewer and separate crews for water?
That is correct. We do have staff that hold different licenses, as we are a blended division here, but we do have specific people that hold specific licenses for certain areas.
Okay, and seeing this as an enterprise account, do we have a P&L of some kind? This is what we took in for revenue, this is what we spent, this is the surplus, are we operating at a loss? Is there a P&L of some kind? I don't know, you would have that, Mike would have that?
Mike, do you have that available? I'm not sure if it's possible.
I do not have that, but they can't operate at a loss.
Can we see those numbers? Do we know if we're overcharging the residents, if we're undercharging the residents, what the surpluses are? I mean, there's been a lot of questions in the community in regards to the water bills. I mean, we should be able to see we're spending X amount of millions, we're taking in X amount of millions, no different than any other business.
Yeah, I don't have that with me, but
A future meeting.
we would have that with our free cash certification last year. You can see what was left for water and sewer. Water and sewer operate just like our budget. They're expected to have money raise money in excess of their needs, so they build up a reserve account.
Yeah, I just want to know what that excess is. I mean, if the excess is excessive is the big question I think I have.
I'll bring the free cash certification to the next meeting.
Thank you. And Frank, with your previous comments on the wells, are we gonna have a problem this summer? If those well 5 is not, you're saying operational for 8 months?
No one has never had enough water to go around. It seems people use water without caution. I would like to say when wells 5 and 6 go online, that may change, but I can't look into the future. We will always have a water ban on. It's part of our water permit that it's writing that we have water bans for outside sprinkler use. We will be very cautious this time around, obviously, knowing that wells 4, 5, and 6 are limited, but they're in the same shape as they were last year. And, we were able to do aggressive flushing programs, also maintain our tank flushing fillings, and along with the fire pump and flow tests that we've done. So I think if people use water wisely, we'll get through this, and we should see new wells before too long.
So you're saying even with new wells, there is never a plan to lift water bans and let people wash their cars or whatever and water their grass?
As part of the water permit, because we're in a stressed aquifer, they require us to have in writing there to have some type of restriction. And that was put in many years ago. I'm thinking probably 20 plus years ago that was actually in writing that there is an outdoor water restriction, and that was part of the permit that was agreed upon by DEP. I don't know what's involved with removing that. It would probably be based on what we can remove from the ground. Right now, we don't even come close to our withdrawal permits for each location. So obviously, if we were to come to that location and ask them for more water, they would want to see what's been done as far as infrastructure improvements. And if we're talking about generating revenue for water sold, there could be there as well, because they're all about conservation as far as how many gallons per person are used.
Thank you.
Is that it? Is that it, Zach?
That's it for now, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Is that James?
Yes, I just wanted to, I heard you guys were looking for the water retained earnings, and that amount was 2 million, in 1 second, 2,524,261. That was the certified retained earnings for the water department, July 1st. Now, when the water budget is put together, it's very similar to the town. Even though they're an enterprise account, they still have to have they must have a balanced budget. So the revenue pretty much are supposed to match the expenses. There is a little bit of cushion in there because they want to have obviously retained earnings certified in case there's an emergency. They don't depend on the general fund at all. So what they have seemed like a lot to you, but considering like over 10, $11 million, 5 is not a lot. And the year before, it was 2.188. It went up about 300,000, the retained earnings. They use that also for some of the capital purchases, and occasionally to fund operating expenses through a vote of through an act. The sewer department works the same way.
Thank you, James.
Hey, Steve?
Is that Bill?
I have a question.
Bill, yeah. Hey,
I think,
can I ask kind of the same breakdown that we put the fire chief and the police chief through? How is overtime allocated? I mean, is it vacations? Is it sick time? What's causing this overtime?
Sure. The operation of the plant is where you're gonna see the majority of this overtime goes. When we have a licensed primary or licensed secondary operator, when that person is not, we are contractually obligated to fill that position, and that person now operates at that rate of pay because they're assuming that responsibility. Obviously, most of our operators, in order to have the licenses that they have, are at the full rate of vacation. So 5 or 6 weeks is what most of the operators are eligible for. So the coverage there is handled by other operators who meet the requirements, and obviously that comes in at a cost on overtime. In addition to the coverage of vacation, sick time, holidays, bereavement, we have the agreement with DEP that the treatment facility will be staffed during all operational hours. In the contract, after 40 hours, the workers are eligible for overtime. Most of these workers have been working usually 6 days a week, and when they have an on-call rotation, they're on for 14 days straight. So obviously you can see the impact that it has on the budget, and wells 5 and 6 couldn't come online fast enough so that we can see the decrease in that and obviously not burn out our employees at the same time.
So is there again, the same thing that has been asked by others to the police chief, fire chief, is there a point where hiring a few more bodies is more cost effective?
Bill, I would love more than anybody to have more bodies here. These guys are specially licensed. Again, it takes, on average, if you fast track everything, get all the licenses that you need, you're talking 4 to 5, sometimes 6 years before you get a license that you can operate a facility by yourself. We have 3 new hires that came in last year, right before Christmas, and thankfully they've been able to get their first level entry licenses. Even with COVID, they've taken their trainings online. Again, before you can put these people on call and have them work the facility by themselves, you're at 2 to 3 years if you're really pushing the envelope and you have somebody that's qualified to do that type of work. Currently, right now in the treatment plant, we actually have 4 operators that are licensed to run that facility. We can't find operators. When we put out postings for vacancies, which I have a couple vacancies right now, we put the requirements in there, we do not get anybody that will come over from another town, leave what they're making there, not to mention what they have for longevity and sick time. It can't be matched here in Norton. We don't get anybody that comes here with any type of license or background, so we're forced to start from the bottom. It's great to train people our way. It's not great for the time that you have to wait and make them work. And if you have a dual license system like we have here, where operators are required to get not only their water licenses, but also treatment licenses, that cuts the time in half because you have to have time served to acquire these licenses from the board of licensure. So, the average license that you may see could take 2 to 3 years. Now you're pushing it to 5 or 6 years if, they are actually working in both systems at the same time. And we don't have the staff to say, you're primarily going to be in water, you're primarily going to be in treatment. It just doesn't work that way with the size of our department.
Okay, thank you.
Did I hear somebody else on the finance committee with a question?
Yes, Mr. Chairman?
Rick?
Yeah, probably directed more towards Mike. I know Jennifer mentioned, obviously Edith Reed's new, and she mentioned one of her surprise increases was the cost of fuel, propane. Frank mentioned that as well. Does the enterprise accounts, do they participate in the program that we have to buy off, futures, and how does that work?
Are you talking about Sursage?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Surge or Sursage. Yeah, water and sewer and highway are both part of that, and fuel and supplies, chemical supplies. A lot of that is purchased through that cooperative bid.
Okay. I know we have just for the electricity, the aggregate program for everyone, the residential program.
Yeah, we cannot participate in the town's aggregation program, but we go out to bid separately, the schools in the town water and sewer, we go out to bid for our electricity.
Okay,
And also the solar on Hill Street, we receive a lot of credits for that, some of which go to water and sewer.
okay, thanks. I didn't know about the enterprise accounts and, I think from what I see, from what I do every day, that energy costs are going to continue to move north. I just think, the better we can protect ourselves, because I think that's going to be an expense that hopefully we can control the best we can, but, we're at the behest of the market.
Okay, does, any other questions from the finance committee for Frank on the water enterprise account? Okay, hearing none. Frank, do you want to go with the sewer enterprise next?
Sure thing. Mike, do you have my help? Yeah. All right, under the salaries, wages, you'll see there's the increase there. That's actually to fund a additional sewer person. We have 3 people that are in the sewer department right now. Obviously, the sewer department has grown quite a bit, and we're actually physically only have 2 people that are here. There's a 3rd person who suffered an injury quite some time ago. They're still out, and that situation is being handled by the court. So you see the increase there is from the 229.81 up to 266.112. That would cover an entry-level person at $45,133 a year. Again, the interfund operating transfers, it's an estimated number that's there. We won't know that actual number until we go back and forth. You'll see a little further down, a small increase on the repair and maintenance of equipment. Our older vehicle is going to need some repairs, going to need some front end work. Obviously, been 6 new tires, so we're throwing in some money there. I believe we did a $5,000 increase on that line item. We are already at just about half of that now, and that vehicle will most likely need some repairs before its next inspection. We carry down a little bit more. Uniforms and clothing allowance, that number there would cover the entry-level clothing that we purchased for the new person for that one vacancy that, that you see there. System materials, we have an increase on there, about $5,000. This is for curb stops that have a check valve that's in them. Anytime we come across an existing one that was installed that we need to do the upgrade on, we have that available in-house. And let's see, we'll jump down. The biggest jump that you're going to see here, if you go all the way down to treatment plant costs, that's our portion of the MFN. It's jumped, I believe, around $40,000 more this time around for our payment to the MFN there.
Mr. Chairman?
Amy?
Frank, do you have an estimated number of how many households in town are on the sewer system?
I actually compiled that last week. I don't have it available, but I will get it over to you.
That would be great. I'm just wondering, like, roughly how much per household we're being assessed for the treatment plant.
I will get that over to you by your next meeting.
Great, thanks.
Any more more questions from the Finance Committee? Okay, hearing none. Frank, thank you very much.
You're very welcome, guys. Have a great night.
And be safe, you too.
Okay. Get the next budget. This is the town manager's budget. This would cover myself and the assistant. And then the expenses down below, the largest increase you'll see is contracted services. There's been a request from the board to put in funds for contracted services for a couple things. One would be to engage human resources services to assist the town, and also to do a wage and salary survey. And that's what that 40,000 would be for. Everything else has stayed pretty much the same for expenses. Steve? Are you talking, Steve? You're on mute.
I hear no questions from any of the FinCom members, so I think we can move to the Finance Committee reserve.
Steve.
Oh, Bill. Go ahead, Bill.
Please forgive me for this. I'm even going to say it's a really stupid question. So forgive me right in the beginning. We understand we are in the low end of paying employees versus other towns. So we spend 40,000 or some portion thereof to do this study. What are we going to do with the information?
Well, at least it would give an understanding of where we sit, whether we can then adjust salaries. We would have to look at that later. But this would just be
to Bill's point. I hope we have, if we're going to go through this survey, I hope we have a plan in place to, one, review it, and two, to take the necessary steps, if required.
Well, to take the necessary steps, if we're strapped now, and then this survey says that your personnel expenditures are not sufficient compared to every other town in the Commonwealth, what are you going to do with that information if you're not willing to take the next step? It seems like a waste of money to verify what we already know, but that's me.
Mr. Chairman.
Zach?
I think to Bill's point, it's not about, we're gonna give her your rate, we're gonna give her, obviously they're gonna come back and say everybody's underpaid, we got that. But they're gonna come back, I think to look at, and I think 40,000 seems outrageous to me, but a lot of these budgets seem outrageous to me, that have been presented so far. But I think it's the same way, are we treating the employees fairly more than anything? I mean, you have, the one in front of you, you got, office salaries. I assume that's Mike's secretary at 100 grand a year, and then you got a clerk making 50 or 60,000 a year. Should that be the case? I think that's more along the lines of what they're looking to do, not to give everybody a raise.
Well, in light of what your point there, you do pay for experience.
I agree.
And
we could argue that all day long, Mike, that this one's worth more than that one.
Yeah.
But I think that's the point of doing the study.
The 40,000 wouldn't just be for that. The 40,000, as I said, is for HR services too, to have someone work on policy manuals and things like that. But it's just a beginning budget.
Mr. Chairman?
Mike, with that said, of the 40,000, what would the cost be for the salary survey and what's the cost for the HR services? Is it 50-50?
Yeah, I'll bring that to you when I do my final budget.
Okay. I think somebody else on the FinCom had something to say.
Yeah, it was me. Mike, when was the last time we did a salary survey?
We did a slight salary survey for the CENA A contract that was just done. But we haven't done a formal salary survey. I don't know the last time, not in the last 10 years, I can tell you that.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else on the Finance Committee with questions for Mike or the town manager budget?
I was just gonna, Mr. Chairman, just gonna say, Mike, I know a town human resource, a personnel director, I think that position would be of value if you use it. I mean, we already know that as Bill mentioned, and we know where we are on the ladder with our peers and towns surrounding. But what about, could you use a person that could help you with collective bargaining? Someone that you take that money and use it for a impactful position where you can move that position forward and use it across all venues. And I don't even know if you could use it to the schools as well. I mean, someone who's a true professional in human resources, personnel development, personnel director, deals with collective bargaining, deals with, all spectrums of that. Someone that's senior level. I think, obviously $40,000 isn't going to go far, but it would certainly, put a ripple in the pond to point you where you got to go. I mean, we know we are in salaries and low, but I think that would give you something to move with.
Right, I agree with you, Rick. This would be a start to have a consultant. And right now, I would love to have a full-time HR person. It would be very helpful. In the long run, it would probably be worth it, but we don't have any place to put them right now in the building. So, that is one of the hopes for the future. But right now, at least if we could have a consultant help us with special services.
Yep.
Mr.
Okay,
Chairman?
thank you.
Amy?
I mean, to Rick's point, I think the issue is going to be, it would take us at least double, if not 3 times what's budgeted here to get someone that would be qualified to do all of the things that you just rattled off.
Right, you're right, definitely.
We'll find out when we do the salary survey.
Yeah, except we don't have that position, so it might not be part of it.
Well,
Chicken and the egg.
it's a return on investment.
Yep.
Yeah.
The clerk of the works, a DPW department. But enough of that. I'm sorry.
All right, any other questions on the town manager's budget? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to Mike, I think it's legal services.
Finance committee next.
Finance committee, okay.
On the finance committee, let me call it up. I just had a suggestion that slightly more hours, mainly because of getting caught up with the minutes from the past. You can see we expended $1,700 in 2019. Last year we only spent $665. And this year we budgeted $1,200, but we haven't had anyone working on the minutes until very recently. And Pat Tarantino is doing your current minutes, and we have someone else that we've interviewed to catch up on all the old minutes. So I'm just anticipating if we spend $1,700 back in 2019, we may be in that area again next year.
All right, any questions from Finance Committee members? Okay, hearing none. I think Legal Services is next, Mike?
Yep, Legal Services, it's reduced a little bit. This past year, let me share that. I'm reducing it slightly. This year, we had, the FY 21, we had a lot of negotiations and also work on the Charter Commission. So we did expend some funds, but I'm not anticipating that we'll need that. We'll be more back to where we were in 2019.
Mike, with that said, I'm thinking just with with the zoning bylaw changes that we've had, with all those reviews, is that 31,000 expended as of now? Is that up to date, or where do we stand as of today?
I'll get you that. I don't have that with me, but I did print that out today, so I'll bring that to the next meeting also.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, Mr. Chairman?
Rick?
Yeah, just to kind of jump on what you said, Steve, just in general, I know we, in other departments that we review, and last week we kind of, we joked around, zoning appeals, I think had like a $300 budget or something. And what do we spend for legal fees on certain departments? I mean, can we break that out? I know departments, we break out, the office supplies, the postage, we break out the propane usage, the electricity usage. But can we kind of get an idea what we spend legal services with departments?
Sure, I'll bring that to the next meeting.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know, I'd be interested, just for one person. Thank you.
Any questions on legal services from the FinCom?
Mr. Chairman?
Is that Zach?
Yeah, Mike, I think billing by the hour, or are they a special retainer? How does it work? What is the deal with the legal service?
They don't bill by retainer. They're not on retainer. They bill by the hour.
And at what point would it make sense to hire a permanent town attorney on staff?
Well, the problem with that, they probably would want more, and they'd probably want a retainer that you'd give them, you'd pay them whether they're doing work or not. And when you have a firm like we do, they have specialists in all different areas, where if you had a local attorney, where I used to work, we had a local attorney, but anything complicated, he would then sub out. So it just wasn't cost effective, and we then switched to hire a larger firm that would have all the different people that we would need, people that specialize in hazardous waste sites, they have that. People that specialize in issues with liquor licenses, people that specialize in negotiations, people that specialize in real estate. So we have someone at the firm that we can talk to all the time.
I know this, the charter, the attorney was there in a lot of the meetings on the charter. What percent, I know you said you're gonna come back to us, but just curious what percentage of this is the one-time charter cost that will end this year?
Yeah, I don't know right now. I do have that, but I'll bring it to the next meeting.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions from the FinCom regarding legal services? Okay, hearing none, I think we can go to, is it Municipal Building?
Okay. Let me call that up. Okay, so under municipal building, the purchase of services, that's for our cleaning company, the paper shredding company. Electricity I've reduced. We've been receiving, as I said, credits from the Hill Street landfill. So it's greatly reduced our electrical cost. So I've reduced that in this budget. The propane gas, I'm requesting the same as last year. In FY20, we spent $29,000, the year before $28,000, but I'm requesting $32,000. Water and sewer is what we pay to the water and sewer department, obviously. And then just the repair, maintenance of equipment and any repairs to the building. With the condition of the building, we have constantly doing repairs here and there just to keep the thing open. And other than that, the rest of the budget, just same as the previous year.
And Mike, what buildings are included here? Is it everything other than every town building except the school?
It is the police department, the fire department, and the town hall.
That's it?
Yep.
Okay. Does the FinCom have any questions on municipal building? Okay, hearing none. I think that's all the budgets we had prepared for tonight, right, Mike?
We did, yep, that's it.
Okay. Anyone on the FinCom at this point have any questions about either what we've heard in the past or what we heard tonight for Mike, or any requests for future meetings at this point?
Mr. Chair,
I think that's Zach, yep.
when are we gonna see recommendations, Mike, on some of these budgets?
Probably in 2 to 3 weeks, I'll go through all the budgets. I'll make my final recommendations all at once.
Mr. Chair, can we have maybe a general discussion on the entire, after we've been presented everything, before we start voting on all these budgets as a whole, before we get into one by one votes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
So when the school's budget, I believe, is due March 12th. So once I receive that, then I'll begin the process of working on all the budgets so that we can try and get a balanced budget.
Mike, have the schools given you the preliminary stuff yet? I know they were still working on it, but.
They have not, no.
Okay.
We've just had discussions on percentages, but nothing definitive yet.
Okay. Okay. And I know we have, next week, we have the Charter Commission gonna do a presentation at the beginning of our meeting. Okay. So I think that's all we have for tonight. What Pat did give me some minutes. I will forward that to everybody and we'll vote on. I know there's at least 3 sets of minutes that are ready to be reviewed, so I'll make sure everyone gets those. And if we have this meeting tonight, if Pat has those reviewed, which really appreciate the time that she's putting in to get these caught up and doing timely, then we'll get all 4 on, and then we'll have to work on the past ones. I know Amy was good enough to forward over what we had for meetings that we didn't have the minutes, and I want to say there was at least 8 to 10, if I'm not mistaken, right, Amy?
There was a lot, yes.
Yeah, okay. So we'll have to, hopefully the new person will come in and hit the ground running, so we can get this done. But I think right now, if we don't have any questions on any of the budgets or any questions on future weeks, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman,
Amy?
seeing the lateness of the hour, I move that we adjourn.
Okay, I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other conversation, discussion? I'll go to the vote. Amy?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Paula?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Mike Fiore?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
And Bonnie?
Yes.
I'm also yes.
Good
All
night, good night, everyone. Good night. Good night.
Peter, enjoy yourself and be safe.
Thank
Everyone,
you. Thank you. Good night.